Welcome to Greater Life, Greater Impact, everybody. Glad to see that you are all here. It's a beautiful morning. Oh, let me silence my phone. We got a lot to cover today, and I am going to do a little bit of talking at the beginning, but I want you guys to grab a pencil and a paper. You're probably going to want to be able to have something that you can write stuff down, because I'm going to ask you a series of questions that will help to trigger stuff that's coming up inside of you. And you may want to be able to have a pen and a paper so you can write it down. So today we are talking about love blocks. So we're going to be talking about what and where are you blocking both the giving and the receiving flow. So love is an energy, just like all the other energies that flow into us. Love is an energy. It's a force. It is a powerful force. It's the force that created the universe. In some ways, Star Wars really did get it right, that when they talk about the force, using the force, that's a powerful energy. And the energy that has the greatest amount of power is love and truth and light, which they're all synonymous. All those three things are the same. So we definitely want to be in a place where we're tapped in, tuned in, turned on to that healthy flow of love constantly. So the best way to do that is to remove the blockages, the things that are blocking you from both giving and receiving. So if you guys have your pencils and your papers ready, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. We're going to start triggering where are the blocks being stored inside of you that prevent you from both either giving or receiving massive amounts of love, which is the highest frequency that you can experience inside of your body. So the first question is, and you're more than welcome to jot down notes. You're more than welcome to journal about this maybe later so that you can also tap into deeper triggers that might come up after this class is over. So I would definitely just kind of keep track of the questions. First question: what lengths will you go to in order to receive love from others? What lengths will you go to in order to receive love from others? Feel free to write that down, but also be thinking about it, pondering on this question. What do you do to go out of your way in order for you to receive love? And what does that love look like? Does it look like acceptance, approval, validation from other people? What does love look like to you? Maybe that should probably be our first question. You could put a number 1 on that one. What does love look like for you? Does it come in the form of acceptance, approval, validation, feedback from the world around you? What does love look like to you? And the second question behind that should be, is that really love? Is that really love that you're seeking? Or is it something else? Okay. The next question. Sorry, you're going to have to write fast. But the next question is, what lengths will you go to in order to put love out there and to show someone in your close proximity that you love them and that you care about them? What lengths will you go to put love out there, to send love out, also to receive love in? Just think about that for a moment. Now, as you're writing those questions down and maybe pondering on those questions, I'm going to talk a little bit about the exchange of both giving and receiving love. This can be perfectly demonstrated in talking about the masculine and the feminine energies, the divine masculine, the divine feminine. You have both inside of your body. You have both masculine energy flowing through you and feminine. One comes in, the other goes out. The energy that that expresses out of you, which is an expression of love where you give out, is masculine energy. The part of you that receives into the heart is the feminine side of you. That's the feminine energy. So let's talk a little bit about the divine masculine and the divine feminine for just a moment. And if I miss anything and I'm covering some of these concepts, I know that many of you guys have way more knowledge than I do. And again, here's my disclaimer, don't believe a word that I say. Please go back to your own source, go back to God and check in to get your own truth. As always, don't take my word for it because I am not your guru. I am not your source of truth. I'm just a mouthpiece. I'm just a vessel sharing with you some of my experiences. Okay, let's talk about the divine masculine and the divine feminine. So, masculine energy, like I said before, we have both energies that flow through us. And the goal is to have both of those energies be in harmony and balance and synchronicity with one another. So, as the divine feminine energy flows into us and pours in, she receives. The woman receives, the man gives. Right? Just think about even sacred sexuality and the roles there. That's not just metaphoric. That is a literal example of how the energies flow. In my mind, I always pictured the divine father, so God, Father God, just holding this big, beautiful space for mother to dwell in and to operate in. And she heals and she creates and she nurtures. And she does that through intuition and spirituality and emotion. And she gives birth. So, I mean, the divine feminine is a powerful energy that resides within us. It's what creates. Like all creation of the universe has been birthed through the divine feminine energies. It's a powerful creative force, but it can't do its work without being equally yoked to the divine masculine. So it doesn't make her better than anyone. It doesn't make her better than the masculine or him better than the feminine, but they both have to be equally yoked in balance and harmony with each other in order to fill and perform their proper functions, to fill the measure of their creation. Right? So we have this beautiful Father God image. This is just in my mind, right? But I have this image of him. He's expansive and big and huge, and his love just emanates out. He is just so full of love that he emanates out in every direction. He shines, but he holds this beautiful, nurturing, safe space for mother then to nurture and to heal and to create and to give birth to creation. Once she has given birth to creation, Father then holds space for that, but he organizes it. He uses science and logic and reason and brute force and strength and power um, to make sure that creation comes to fruition. Right? He is the driving force. He is out there getting stuff done with a driving, powerful force. She is in this safe space, this safe harbor that he's created for her, creating and nurturing and healing and receiving. And he is the expansive expression of that, putting that creation out there, putting it to form, making it, bringing it into divine order. So if you think about the properties of the divine masculine, they're about going out and getting stuff done, right? We're going to get stuff done. We're going to get from point A to point B in the shortest distance because we are efficient and we are using logic and reason. I mean, look at what the divine masculine has created. just this past weekend, my husband and I celebrated our 33rd wedding anniversary. We drove out to St. Louis to go see the St. Louis Arch, 600 feet straight up in the air. It's an arch, for heaven's sakes. How in the world did they build something like that made out of stainless steel without it collapsing in before the two sides came? Like, I was amazed. We watched an hour-long video as to how they got that done. The logic and the skill and the reason and the math and the science that went in to creating something so amazing and powerful um, was inspiring to me. That largely is divine masculine energy. And then the rest of the weekend, as we drove around the rest of the city, I looked at these majestic, incredible, powerful buildings and structures that engineering minds came up with. And then you think about how much manpower went into laying every single brick in these tall, I mean, there's a lot of brick buildings that are gigantic buildings in St. Louis, Missouri. I thought about the man hours, the labor that went into laying every brick, laying every piece of steel, riveting all that steel together, the thousands and thousands of, like, that is divine masculine energy. Then we come into the divine feminine energy and we think about um, the creative force that went into coming up with those ideas and bringing the ideas to fruition is divine masculine, but the ideas and the creativity and the emotion behind it and the meaning and the intuition behind it, that is definitely divine feminine energy. So divine masculine gives, it creates for sure, but it gets the creation, it brings it to fruition. So, and you think about the creation of a human being. There's two pieces that have to converge and come together. You can't just create a human being with just an egg. There has to be a sperm, and they have to come together. Um, the symbol that represents the divine masculine is a square. The symbol that represents the divine feminine is a circle. It's flowy and bendable, and as a result, when the divine feminine energy gets out of whack, it cannot get from point A to point B. It gets overly sensitive and overly emotional, and it cannot logic and reason its way through a paper bag because it's out of balance. So when the divine masculine energy gets out of balance and out of alignment, it gets controlling and angry and wants to use brute force to bring things back into order. And so, in order for both the energies within us and also within our intimate relationships, in order for those to be in a place of balance and harmony, they have to work with each other. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about that. One of the environments that really needs to be created in order for that balance to take place and that equal yoking of both the flow of energies is both the masculine and the feminine energies need to feel safe. So in an intimate relationship, then, if your divine masculine, if your counterpart that is in his masculine energy does not feel safe, he's probably going to go into coping mechanisms that make him way out of whack, out of balance. And now here's another thing to consider too, is that sometimes men operate more in their divine feminine energies than they do in the masculine. And if that's the case, then when they feel out of balance, they're going to be overly sensitive and overly emotional, like tears. And they'll be wishy-washy. They can't make up their mind. They can't think clearly. They're all over the map. They can't get from point A to point B. That is divine feminine energy out of whack, out of balance. you can flip that around on its head too. So if a woman is operating mostly in her divine masculine energy, she is all about logic and reason. And she is all about just using brute force to get through her life and get the stuff done that she knows she's got to get done. And she's gonna bulldoze you over in the process because she ain't got time for the feminine. She doesn't have time. The feminine energy is very intuitive and flowy, and it doesn't necessarily need to get from point A to point B. It's all about the journey, not about the destination. For the divine masculine, it's about the destination. It's about getting that building built. Let's get that done. And let's do it in the most efficient way that we possibly can. And here's the strategy and here's the steps. In the divine feminine, it's more about let's have a great time doing it. Let's enjoy this process. Let's have it be a meaningful experience. Let's allow creativity and intuition to divert us if need be, if we're a little bit off track. So, where in your life and in your relationships, your intimate relationships, do you not feel safe? Write that down. That's the next question. So, we're trying to trigger blocks in you. Where in your intimate relationships do you not feel safe? And in those moments when you don't feel safe, let's say maybe you got triggered by an experience or an event or something happened and it pushed your buttons really big time to the point where you were upset or emotional or retaliating or feeling threatened or needed to attack back or maybe just recoil and go into sadness, whatever that looks like for you. That's the next question is how did you respond to those feelings? How did you respond to the experience of not feeling safe in an intimate relationship? What was your response? Tina says, I'm not sure I've ever felt safe. Ooh. Okay. You are getting to some roots there, Tina. And so keep that on a piece of paper somewhere. Make a note of that. Put a star by it because we're going to come back to that. Okay. Awesome. And thank you for the feedback. If any of you want to share some feedback as stuff is coming up for you, please do share because it's going to help a lot of people to work through their stuff as well. So please don't worry about being vulnerable if you're willing to share some of the experiences that are coming up for you. So let's just take the example of what Tina is experiencing in her intimate relationships is not feeling safe. So what is being reflected back to you? That's my question. Once you have what the triggers are, what the buttons are, what's coming up for you in your relationships where you don't feel safe, you don't feel, because again, if you don't feel safe in a relationship or in an environment or a situation, you're never going to open yourself up. You're never going to open your heart up because that's too dangerous. It's too vulnerable. And if you can't move into vulnerability in an intimate relationship, that's not intimacy. You won't have an intimate relationship. You'll have roommates. So the next phase is we're going to identify what are the issues coming up. So Tina's, for example, was I've never felt safe. That's the issue coming up. So you identify what the issue is for you. In your intimate relationships, how do your buttons get pushed the most? What is the issue for you? Write it down. I'll give you just a few minutes to ponder and reflect on that. What do you resort to? What are the behaviors? Do you withdraw? Do your claws come out? Do you get angry? Do you say hurtful things or do you just go into inner hurt and hold on to that hurt and that wounding in your heart? What behaviors do you resort to? Now, when you experience wounding in your male female masculine feminine relationships. And typically in any relationship, even if it's two men or two women, in any relationship, there is going to be one who's probably more predominantly in their masculine energy and another who is probably more predominantly in their feminine energy, because we're always seeking for balance. We're always seeking for the connection and the synchronicity of the divine masculine and the divine feminine within us. So it doesn't matter what type of relationship it is. Both the divine masculine and feminine are seeking for balance, even if it's a parent-child relationship, right? Or just friendships. You're constantly seeking for that balance. Okay, what are the issues coming up? What do you resort to? What what is being reflected back to you? This is a great question, and I'm going somewhere with these questions. So keep your questions in order because they're going to lead to a destination and to healing, hopefully, at the end of this. What is being reflected back to you? In those moments where you're triggered, where your buttons are being pushed the most, where you feel out of balance and not equally yoked and unsafe, what is being reflected back to you? So, you may write down an inner belief, such as, I'm not safe, I'm not lovable, I am not loved, I am not worthy, something's wrong with me, or maybe something's wrong with the world. Maybe you might have a belief that something's wrong with this world, something's wrong with that person, or something's wrong with me. Okay. So, with that being said, I want you to write down mother/father wounding. Most of the time, well, we could probably even say almost all of the time. We could probably say that and be accurate, but I'm not going to give absolutes. But, anyways, most of the time in intimate relationships that you're seeking to have, where there's an imbalance in that intimate relationship, it's because there is mother-father wounding. It typically will go all the way back to your childhood. Now, in your life and in your career and in your daily pursuits, the things that you're really good at, the things that you shine in, some of that childhood wounding you can hide behind and no one's going to see it. But when it comes to being in an intimate relationship, you can't hide that inner child that's wounded. You can't. They're going to come out like a grizzly bear out of the woods for raw meat. Right? So if you're seeking for a loving companionship relationship, like we all naturally, it's a part of our human design, right? We're all hungry for intimacy and connection. So when you seek for intimacy and connection in any kind of relationship that you're seeking it in, then that inner wounded child is going to come out. They are going to be seen. So the invitation for you is to go within and go inward and kind of notice what am I experiencing in my personality and in my relationships that goes all the way back to that wounded child that was wounded either by my mother or my father. I just listened to a podcast recently, and that's what inspired this class today. And the podcast was talking about healing the divine feminine and the masculine. And one of the gentlemen spoke up on this podcast, and he said there was 4 people talking, but he said, I realized that when I would extend myself out into a relationship and really just try to give of my soul and try to buy love in order to receive love back, Oh, I will post the name of the podcast. It's well worth your time. I think it's over an hour, but well worth your time. I will post it inside the Facebook group um, underneath the announcement to this class. Okay, so you guys have it, and also put it in the messenger thread. But one of the things that he said when he was a little boy, he was like 12, 13, kind of an early teen, and he was so hungry for approval and acceptance and validation and love, what he thought love was, right? He was so hungry for that he would go out and take these Kit Kat bars and put money in them and give them to girls or write poetry or whatever it was, just in hopes to receive love back, and all he ever got was rejection. And he said, I learned later on when I got into my adult years that I kept doing that. I kept trying to buy a woman's affection or her love. And really, what I was doing, he said, I was just trying to heal the rejection of my father. I was trying to please my father. And it went all the way back. That was the root. And so, in any intimate relationship, wherever you're wounded, it probably goes all the way back to mother father wounding. So, that's what we're going to get at today. The relationships that you seek to create. Let's see. The mother father wounds are reflective of what you're experiencing in your personality today and the relationships that you seek to create. Your desire for intimacy and all of these motives can be turned back to the mother father experience, and whether or not you felt rejected or abandoned or betrayed by mother or father, whether or not you gave as much love as you possibly could give, but it was never enough. So that wounding is usually what reflects in your loving relationships, in your current loving relationship. Let's talk about what love is. Let's talk about what love means to you. You can either unmute yourselves or you can type it into the chat. Actually, while you guys are doing that, I'm going to look up this podcast and I'll share it with you on the screen. This guy's name is Aubrey Marcus. It's called the Aubrey Marcus podcast. I'm going to show you a picture. Where is it? This is the actual podcast. I don't know if you can see that. It looks like it's blurred. Hold on. I'm going to show you. This one is called, it's number 290. He's done a lot of podcasts, obviously. Healing the Masculine and Feminine with Stefanos, Christine Hessler, and Vilana Marcos. I can't spell those. I'm going to go back to his, actual, that's what it looks like. Really great podcast. I think I'm only halfway through it, but let's go back to the original question and then go ahead and unmute when you're ready to answer the question, which is, what is love? What does it mean to you to both give and receive love? What does that look like for you? Does it come in the form of approval? Does it come in the form of, what's the other word? Validation? What does love look like to you? In a loving, intimate relationship, what does that look like? Just give me, you guys, your thoughts. Here's the other thing to remember. If we go back to parent wounding, mother, father wounding, if you are still walking through your life seeking to please your mother or your father or make them approve of you, you will never be enough in any of your relationships, ever. So that's got to be healed. It's got to be cleared up. And again, when we experience rejection or we feel unsafe in our relationships, usually it goes back to that shame energy. And when did you feel shamed by a parent, by your mother or by your father? These are good comments. Jill says, putting another's needs before your own. That's what love looks like for Jill. Marcy says, for me, it's time, support, approval, acceptance. It's hard because I feel like everyone receives and gives love different. So the question really is, what is love? Yes. Yes. So I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the 5 love languages and the different ways that you can both give love out and receive love back in. And we tend to take on labels like I'm a gift giver, or I need quality time, or la 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 la, whatever that is. The truth is, in your most healthy self, you can both give and receive in all ways, and it doesn't matter. So we are going to talk a little bit about what love is. Heidi says love means accepting one no matter where you are. Yes. Yes. And the only way that you can allow yourself to accept someone no matter where they are, and no matter how they show up for you, is if you have a healthy sense of self love. So I read a book years ago by Deepak Chopra called The Path to Love, and I highly recommend this book if you are struggling in intimate relationships. I only read the first 3 chapters, and then I lent the book out to someone. I never got it back, and I haven't purchased another one. But for me, the first 3 chapters was all I needed. And in the first 3 chapters, he talked about how love is not you going out into the world seeking someone that can gift you the feelings that you're seeking for. That's what the world teaches. Shalice, the book is called The Path to Love by Deepak Chopra. It's an old book. I think he wrote it in the 90s, but it's a fantastic read for gaining an understanding and a perspective of how to have intimate relationships. So in the book, he says, it's not your mother's job to gift you love. It never was. It's not your father's job to gift you love. It's not your spouse's job to gift you love. It's not your children's job to gift you love. And it's not your job to gift it back to them. That's hard to hear for a lot of people, because when I say that in coaching to people, they'll say, well, then what is even the point in having a relationship if you're not going to receive anything back after you've given and given and given everything out? I think it, I think it, the concept of what love really is deserves to be known. So if you think about what is the first great commandment, it is to love God. And part of that loving God is receiving his love unto yourself, being able to be a receptacle of his love. What is the second great commandment? It's to love yourself. It's worded differently, but it's to love your neighbor as yourself. You cannot pour love out onto another human being. You can't do it if you don't know how to receive love from the appropriate source, and if you don't have love for your own self. Because to the degree that you're tapped into the divine and receiving that love, but also to the degree that you love yourself genuinely, is to the same degree that you will be able to flow love out of you and give in that way that is meaningful to you and to others. So here's how the world teaches what love is. The world teaches and programs us to believe that it's your job to go out into out into the pond and find another human being that you feel connected to, and then you're supposed to feel those juicy feelings that flow back and forth between you, and but then as the relationship develops, as soon as that person can no longer gift you those good feelings, then you have to either leave them or hate them because they're not gifting you those good feelings anymore. That's what the world teaches. Watch any movie, read any book. That if someone cannot satisfy the feelings that you feel inside of you in any given moment, or if they're triggering bad feelings inside of you, you have to hate them or retaliate or la 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 la, whatever. That's not love, that's manipulation. I was just watching a movie with my husband the other night, 2 nights ago. We were watching a show, and it was about these little children, and they were hockey players, and somebody had made a mistake or made a blunder. This little boy made this blunder, and the whole team turned against him because he made a mistake. And he had to go through all of these hoops in order for them to forgive, or in order for them to forgive him. And I was thinking, this is ridiculous. Like, what manipulation? What manipulation to think that you owe me my good feelings. You owe that to me. And if you can't provide good feelings for me, if you can't give me that healthy feedback that I'm hungry for and looking for, then I'm going to have to hate you. And I'm going to make you jump through hoops in order to apologize to me because you did something wrong and you made me feel uncomfortable. That's ridiculous. That is not love. But yet that's how the world teaches it. So it's time for us to call that out. Love is not that. Love is identifying where the source of love comes from, which is God, allowing that to flow into you and out of you, tapping into the love that you already have of yourself, and realizing that from a higher self perspective, you are love. You are the epitome of love at the deepest level. And that nobody owes you those feelings. You're responsible for the feelings that go on inside of you. You are. You created those buttons that they're pushing. The buttons belong to you. They are not responsible for the buttons they're pushing. You are responsible for those buttons because you created them. So if you really want to experience true love, the essence of love that will produce ecstasy and bliss to a level that you've probably never experienced before, you got to go inside and you got to do your inner work and you got to heal those old mother father wounds from your childhood. You've got to heal that part of yourself so that you can be an open receptacle of receiving love from the proper source, which is heaven, and then expressing love from the proper source, which is your true self. When you can learn how to do that and just flow with love, you will never be empty. You will never need approval or validation or acceptance or respect from any other human ever again. You won't need it from your parents. You won't need it from your siblings. You won't need it from your children or your spouse. It's not their job to gift you love. They can't properly do it anyways because they don't know you on an inner level, likely the way that God knows you and the way that you know you. You're pretty much the only one who really knows the depths and the roots of your own wounding. And so when that gets triggered, that's on you because you're the only one who knows it. God knows it. So you can actually work on these things through heaven to help you heal those things. But as you heal them, the buttons and the triggers go away and you become a vessel that's just free to flow in love. And you know what? That feels good. So when you get two healthy human beings who know how to stand in the sovereignty of love, who they really are, and those two human beings come together and form a union, and they're both sovereign beings. They're both just flowing in love. They know where to get it. They know how to express it. There's no neediness to each other. There's sovereignty. When those two people can come together and just share the best parts of themselves with each other at that point without needing anything to be reciprocated. There is no neediness. There is no expectation. There is no condition on the love. Like there is no, I will give you my love if you make me feel this way. But if you can't make me feel this way anymore, I'm not going to give you love anymore. That is not love. That is not. That's manipulation and control. And we know where that comes from. And isn't it interesting that that's the predominant narrative in a society that's seeking for love? It's crazy. So, again, love is the flow of love comes from this place. A healthy person who knows how to access the source of love, which is God, and express love through themselves, which is your higher self, which is love, and can stand sovereign in that. When that person, that kind of a person, so sovereign spiritually, can come together with another healthy person that is sovereign spiritually, and they share the best parts of themselves or just love back and forth without needing or wanting or expecting. There's no tethers. They expect nothing from the other person because they are a sovereign being. I don't need them to gift me these good feelings. I am the good feeling. I am the good feeling. I'll share it with you though. And when you share that with another person and you're willing to be open and exposed and vulnerable and raw, even when you don't feel safe, that's intimacy. It's surrendering completely and entirely to that other person. That's sharing. That is unconditional love. And I can't tell you how many times in relationships that I've had that are intimate relationships where I have said to the other person, don't apologize for your behavior. Don't apologize for your la 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 la, because everyone's always on eggshells going, oh, I'm so sorry, I messed up. Oh, I'm so sorry I didn't make it to the appointment. Oh, I'm so sorry I didn't text you. Oh, I'm so sorry I didn't meet your expectation. I don't care. I don't need that from you. I don't have expectations I put on you. You owe me nothing. If you want to be my friend, you owe me nothing. The fact that you don't ever call me or like if you say that to a spouse or to a friendship or whatever it might be, um, that has no bearing and no significance on whether or not I love you. My love for you is unconditional, non-tethered. There are no tethers, there are no expectations. You don't have to earn it. It's just always there. I will always love you, regardless of what you say or what you do or anything external. That love is infinite. It's an expression of who I am. If you can get to that place in your relationships, back and forth, and there is no expectation, and there is no tethering, and there is no, I'll love you only if you can have a relationship like that, you will experience ecstasy, bliss, the highest levels of love, especially when you can learn how to surrender to the other person. All right, let's get into our bodies for a minute. Heidi says, but that doesn't mean we just take the abuse of others. Correct. Yeah, no one's saying that. Nope. Nobody's saying that you should ever take abuse from anybody else. But what I am saying is my love for you is not contingent upon what you do or what you say. I don't have tethers. I don't have expectations. I just love. I just love you. Now, if you're going to be abusive to me, then I'm probably going to take measures that will protect myself from being in harm's way, right? Just because you have infinite, divine, untethered love for somebody doesn't mean that you have to be in harm's way. It doesn't mean that you have to be in an unhealthy relationship, but you can still have love flow from you out into the universe. And wherever that love spills is totally fine. Like it's like the sun The sun sitting up in the heavens doesn't go, I'm really mad at you today. I'm not going to shine my light on you because you ticked me off, or you did this, or you did that. I'm withholding my light. The sun is kind of a metaphor for love. When you get in and you tap into your higher self, and that being within you that is love, the essence of love and the expression of love, that love will just shine out in every direction, and who knows where it will spill out on people. And you don't need it to be gifted back to you or reciprocated back to you from that person that it's spilling out onto. There's no neediness because you are plugged into the proper source of love, which isn't them. It's God. It's your higher self. Okay, let's do some healing. Let's go back to your questions. Let's go back to mother, father wounding. We're going to work on, what time is it? We've got 15 minutes. Whew, let's see what we can do. We're going to work only on, well, let's take a vote. You want to work on mother wounding today or father wounding today? Type it into the chat. Ready, go. We'll take a vote. Someone says mother. Two mothers, one father, three mothers. Okay, it looks like it's going to be mother today. Okay, father's catching up. We're going to have a tie. Okay, let's go to mother. All right, so write down mother. Write down your mother's name on a piece of paper at the top of the paper. We're going to go into mother wounding. You can also repeat this exercise for father wounding. We're just going to do some clearing and processing and transmuting of the energy like we've done so many times before. You guys should know how to do this already, but let's just go inside and start triggering some stuff. In regards to mother, you can call her by name. You can just write down mother at the top of the page. Think of a time in your early childhood where you did not feel safe around mother, where you did not feel accepted, approved of, loved. In the divine feminine, often when we go into the divine feminine, sometimes we will resist going into the divine feminine because we think we're going to lose our power, because we think it's not powerful. It's too emotional and intuitive and fluffy and non-tangible and not logical, and it doesn't get anything done. But that's not truth. The divine mother loves, she nurtures, she creates, she heals, and Father holds space for that. So I want you to think of the divine mother for a moment. You can also write down across from your mother's name, the divine mother. Think about the attributes that she has. Think about the things that the way that she gives to you and nurtures you. I want you to think of yourself as a little child and go all the way back to the way that your mother triggers you. How has your mother not accepted you, abandoned you, betrayed you, shamed you, harmed you? She may not have intended to do those things to you. What mother would do that intentionally to their child unless the mother herself was wounded? Lorianne says, I don't feel protected by my mother. My father could be very volatile at times, and she never said anything. Yeah. And could it be, Lorianne, that maybe she was afraid of him? Could it be that maybe she was afraid of him? So I want you to go to that scene. Everybody paint the picture in your mind that you're being taken to in your moment, in this moment. Go back to that little child where the father was being scary and volatile, or whatever the situation is for you. Create the memory, light it up, hover over that memory as if you are an angel of light, just watching over it and observing the experience as it's playing out. Hover over it and watch and listen. What are the feelings that are going on inside of Mother in that moment? And how do you relate to her feelings? What are the insecurities? What are the pains being triggered inside of Mother in that moment? And how do you relate to those feelings? What are the beliefs that Mother has about herself in that moment? And how do you relate to those beliefs about yourself? Just think about that experience. Try to draw it out. Try to paint the picture as vividly as you can. Hear the sounds, smell the smells, feel the emotions, light it up as if you're watching it from above and you have an external understanding of where Mother is coming from in this moment, and what is the pain inside of her that she's projecting onto you that's causing you to not feel safe or not feel loved or not feel validated. So with that understanding now that you have of possibly where Mother is coming from as a human being just like you, an adult human being just like you, who has fears and insecurities and frailties and fragility and wounding herself. Just tap into her pain for a moment. And I want you to say out loud, I bless, and say her name. So I'm going to do it too. My mother's name is Loya. I bless Loya. She's an individual human being with pain and fear and sadness and wounding. I bless her. In this moment, she's not my mother. She's a human being who's scared. So I bless Loya. I do. Next, say, I release her, and say her name, from my suffering. She projected her pain onto me, that's truth. But I release her now from my suffering. This suffering is mine. It belongs to me. I own it. I'm ready to now process it and release it and be set free from the tethers of it. So I release her from my suffering. Say her name. I release Loya from my suffering. These are my buttons. I created them. She may have helped. I might not be to blame, but I am responsible. Get into your body, take your awareness and go inside, drop all the way down to the base of the spine as you process this energy. Get deep down into the hips and the legs and the feet. And breathe deeply as you surrender that energy out into the universe to be processed. Now, I want you to say the words, I forgive. Say her name. I forgive Loya for projecting her pain and her suffering and her sadness and her fear onto me. I forgive her. Now, forgiveness is you choosing to let go of suffering once and for all. Stop holding on to this old story that keeps coming back to suffering. Let go of the story. It's not serving you to hold on to this story anymore of pain. So choose to let go of the story by saying, I forgive. I love her. I forgive her. I want her to be free of it too. I want all beings in the universe to be free from this pain. So I choose to transmute it and return it to love. Next, you're going to say out loud, I bless myself. Go back to that little child that's wounded and pick her up or him up and kiss her or him on the cheek and say, I see you. I hear you. You matter to me. Your feelings are legitimate and they matter. And just say out loud, I bless myself. I release myself from this suffering. When you're ready to let it go, just release and say, I'm ready to let this go now. I'm ready to let go of the story. I'm ready to be free from these tethers, these expectations that were never met. I'm ready to release and let go. I bless myself. I release myself from this suffering. Feel it. Get into your body and feel yourself surrender and let it go. Just like you let go of a rope that you've been holding on to for so long, and at the end of the rope is your own pain. Let it go. Release it. Send it to the light. Transmute it into something else. Next, say, I forgive myself for carrying this. I didn't know. I did the best I could. I was a little child, for heaven's sakes. I didn't have tools. I did the best I could, but I forgive myself for carrying this for so long. I'm ready to be done. Release it and let it go. And breathe deeply into your body. Drop down to the base of the spine, down into the hips and legs and feet, and just breathe out all that tension. Release, 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 release. Let it go. Just feel yourself surrender to the relaxation, the softness of love and safety. You were never not safe. There was never a time in your mortality that you were not safe, ever. You have always been safe. You just didn't know. You're an infinite being, for heaven's sakes. Nothing can threaten infinity. So you were never not safe. You were just a little bit blind. So release that, let it go. Tap back into your higher self at the base of the spine and breathe into that. And just say to yourself, I forgive myself for holding on to this. I didn't know I was doing it. Let it go. I forgive myself. Now, to your higher self, I want you to say out loud, I love you. I love you, self. You beautiful self. I love you. You can look in a mirror and do this. It's even more powerful to look right into your eyes. But say, I love you. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry for what's inside of me that's out of alignment with love. Please forgive me for that. Thank you. Now think about your mother. Call her by name. Just tell her, Loya, I love you. I do. You are a divine human being, just like I am. I'm sorry that I didn't see you that way. I'm sorry that I was disconnected from you. I'm sorry for what's going on inside of me because of my judgments of you. Please forgive me for that. Thank you. And can you give yourself permission to see your mother as her higher self, as an adult, grown, mature, spiritual being who has every right to repent and heal and to step into the presence of God just like you do? She has every right to be resolved just like you do. And can you own the feelings that are going on inside of you as your own? You created those feelings. And can you give yourself permission to let those go? Now, next, we're going to say, I bless all the witnesses to my suffering and my pain and my hurt. I bless all the witnesses. I release all the witnesses from my suffering and my pain and my hurt. I'm an infinite being. I don't need to be tethered to this anymore. I bless them, I release them, and I forgive unconditionally, meaning I'm letting this suffering go. I'm letting go of the story. I'm not going to tell the story anymore. I'm not going to bring it up when people ask. I'm not going to cry every time I think about it. I am letting the story go. Gone. I'm going to allow my mother to be resolved and to step into heaven, into the divine, into her higher self. And I'm going to do the same. And then just say to heaven, well, actually, let's say to all the witnesses, anybody who ever witnessed your suffering and your pain and the effects of it, just say to the world and to the universe, I love you. I'm sorry for what was in me that was out of alignment with love so that I couldn't give or receive. Please forgive me. Thank you. So, what this is doing is opening up the divine feminine aspects of your heart, the part of your heart that receives love. Because the first step in becoming an intimate being that can have intimate relationship is really receiving love from the highest place, which is heaven, which is God. So we're going to open up that part of your heart so that you can now receive love from God. So now I want you to say out loud, use your voice and say it. I love you. Say it to God, say it. And for me, God is Father, Mother, the whole God family, Christ, his companion, the companions of Christ, whoever that is, right? We have many siblings in the God family and we have parents in the God family. So there's a lot of beings in the divine, that realm. So that's God to me. It's the whole family of gods. So you can just say, I love you, and say it to the God family. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't see you. I'm sorry that I misjudged. I'm sorry that I was disconnected from your love. I'm sorry that I blamed it on other people. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me for being out of alignment with you, heaven. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry for what's going on inside of me that I created that made me step out of alignment with love between me and you. Um, we're not going to do a separate class on opening up the divine masculine, but I highly encourage you so that you can create a balance of flow. I highly encourage you to go back through this exercise again. Um, you're not going to be able to get the recording from Facebook because they won't let me dump these recordings into the Facebook group anymore. For some reason, Facebook is censoring so much of what I'm doing. So it's nobody's fault. It's just how it is. If you want to purchase the replays of all of these classes, you can go to my website to do that. And if you need help finding that, you just reach out to me, and I'll share with you where to go to get that. But you do need to go through this experience again with the divine masculine now and do the healing and the forgiveness work and figure out how you've been wounded. What are your father wounds? What are the father wounds? And how is that preventing you from giving love out into the world? Oftentimes we shrink from stepping into our divine masculine because we're afraid that we're going to lose our freedom. And we're afraid that we're going to be too powerful or we're going to bulldoze people over. Oftentimes we're afraid to step into the divine feminine because we're afraid that we'll be seen as weak. We got to be willing to embrace both. And isn't it amazing how God designed many of our relationships in this earth life to be a partnering of the divine masculine and the divine feminine coming together to remind us where we're out of alignment. So I would invite you at this point in time to just put your hand over your heart and say out loud, where inside of me have I blocked myself from either giving love out, which is the divine masculine, or receiving love in, which is the divine feminine? Where in my life am I blocking myself from giving love? And take a look at that. What's at the root of that? What are the memories, the experiences? Who do you need to forgive? Like, where are you holding that and storing it in your body? And can you process that and release it and let it go? And where in my life am I blocking myself from receiving love in or giving it out? So find those. Let's start creating a more healthy balance. Stop putting expectation on the people in your life to gift you those feelings. It's not their job. They're not even qualified to gift you the feelings that you're seeking, which is true, authentic love. Well, that's who you are. If you really want to feel and experience love in an intimate way in your life, the first step is you got to connect to God. Second step is you got to connect to your higher self, because that's who you are. And then the third step is, then once you're in a sovereign, healthy place and there's no tethers and there's no expectation and there's no I need, or I want, and you owe me. Once that has been released and removed, then you can just step into these relationships where you just share the best part of yourself with the other person when there's no expectation, and it's freedom. When you get to a point in that kind of a relationship where you can totally and completely surrender all and be vulnerable and exposed, like the innermost parts of your heart are vulnerable and exposed, then you've reached a level of ecstasy and intimacy and bliss that most human beings will never experience, because they have too many barriers, they have too many expectations, and they have too many um, rules around what love can and cannot be. So I invite you on that note to go out into your relationships and just be. Just be the epitome of love. Tap into the source of love that you need in order for it to flow so you don't get empty. For sure. But that's step one. Think of the two greatest commandments. Love God, love yourself. Then that love from God can flow and spill out on everyone around you, and they will feel it. And they likely will reciprocate it, because they'll feel it so powerfully coming from you. All right. Thank you. Thanks for being on here, everybody. Hey, Jolene. Thanks for being on here. Yes, this was a beautiful broadcast. So many great healings took place today, healing the divine feminine within us. I hope that you guys will go back to your notes and do the same thing for the divine masculine so that you can put yourself in a healthy place. Then step into your relationships from a totally different paradigm and see yourself as the love that you think that you need. All that you think that you deserve and that you need and that you want and you desire, you are all of that. So learn to tap into that and surrender to it and just be it. And your relationships will be beautiful and sacred, and they will flow with love. The levels of love that you likely have never experienced before. So, all right. Good class today. Thank you guys for being here. Thanks again for participating. Again, if you want the replays to these classes, you can go to my website, janetthurgood.com, click on the courses, and just purchase the Greater Life, Greater Impact 2021, and that will get you the entire year's worth of, of the replays of these classes. Also, we have a major issue with Facebook. Actually, let me stop the recording here.